people only have to take 3 knockouts to win the game. Greninja really forces you to take all 6 knockouts, which can be hard for some decks.
It's true, but at the same time, Greninja has been known to be a very clunky deck, which has coined the phrase, friends don't let friends play frogs.
Absolutely, yeah. It's very, very clunky at times, but, you know, there is some new consistency with it. Ultra Prism brought it. Cynthia, which a lot of people were excited about, giving it just another consistency draw supporter. Cynthia, of course, a card we've talked about a lot today on stream. We've seen it a lot in all of our games. Very powerful, and, you know, just adds an extra level of consistency to the decks.
Right. Only fitting that it would be prominent in another round.
Absolutely, yeah. So we're just getting a couple of last things set up here, and we're going to cast it over to these guys and see what, you know, they're going to want to do. And I think this matchup is actually, you know, fairly close, right? Greninja has that comeback potential. You know, Buzzwole has to take all 6 knockouts, which is kind of tough.
Right.
But Buzzwole, you know, has such an early game pressure, right?
Right.
You know, it can, you know, if Danny's to go second, he can easily get a Jet Punch knockout turn 1 on a Froakie. You know, and just really start taking prizes from turn 1.
Exactly.
And that's, you know, you don't want to give Greninja extra turns, right?
Exactly.
Whenever you're not taking knockouts against Greninja is whenever they're just getting ahead in the board state, getting ahead in the game state.
Right. And that chip damage, like you said, it's very good against the frogs.
Yeah,
They're
absolutely.
very frail.
Yes, 60 HP on Froakie, you know, Staryu as well, a really important Pokemon in the Frogadier decks. Or, excuse me, Froakie decks, not Frogadier decks.
Greninja, but close enough.
Greninja, yes, has only 40 HP, so very, very frail. You know, Frogadier has 70 HP, can also be knocked out by like a strong plus, you know, if Danny's to play like a version with 2 Regirock, which I've seen some people play before, so 70 damage there. And, you know, spreading damage around with Jet Punch makes it easier to knock out Greninja breaks later in the game.
Right.
Of course, Claw Slash from Lycanroc as well can also play a factor. You know, with strong energy and 2 regular fightings, you do 130 to knock out a regular Frogadier, or excuse me, a regular Greninja, a non-break evolved Greninja break, and
we'll knock something out.
Yes,
we're not sure what.
Yeah, we'll see what happens for sure. We'll get it kicked over to those guys here pretty soon, I think, and get the round started.
Hopefully.
Hopefully so.
But until then, what else do we have to discuss?
Well, I just think this Buzzwole deck, I've walked around between the rounds when we've had time. I've talked to a lot of the players, and it just seems like there are a lot of very good players playing this Buzzwole Lycanroc deck. Normally, a lot of times, like you see these like really, whatever deck was super popular at the last tournament, be played a lot by the general population, but the top tier players try to like shift to something else that counters that deck.
Right.
But it appears that this tournament, a lot of the top tier players have opted to just play the deck, you know.
Right.
And I think that comes from Buzzwole Lycanroc being just so strong, like we've talked about, and it's kind of difficult to counter. Zoroark decks play Mew EX and Mewtwo to try to counter it somewhat, but even those like can still lose to Buzzwole Lycanroc.
Right.
So the decks that are built to beat it definitely can still lose to it.
Definitely, I remember seeing some of the top-tier players on Twitter in the past week going, what do I play before I just pick up Buzzwole again?
Yeah.
It's just that safe go-to option.
Absolutely. Just a great fallback. You know, people generally try to, like, you know, come up with something unique before a tournament, but sometimes the deck that's just been proven consistent, been proven powerful is the deck to go with.
And it only keeps getting better and better.
Yes, with the new set coming out, of course, Forbidden Light, bringing it things like B-String.
Oh, B-String.
Super good card. If you're at 3, your opponent is at 3 or 4 prizes, you get to search 2 basic energies out of your deck and attach them to an Ultra Beast Pokemon.
Jeez. Absolutely
crazy how good that card is. Diancie Prism Star, extremely good card. It's jacked up Regirock effectively. Regirock, you know, boosts fighting Pokemon's attacks by 10. Right. Diancie will boost it by 20, so...
Right. And it's a Prism. Yes,
Prism Star. You can only play one, but, you know, I think if you could play more than one Diancie Prism Star, that card would be a little too good,
Oh my gosh, it would be so broken.
So good. The Buzzwole decks would just play a lot of it.
We would literally see nothing but Buzzwole.
Buzzwole Diancie would be a deck, I'm sure. Just
for sure.
Buzzwole Diancie. You don't even need Lycanroc at that point, right?
It'd just be like the Deoxys from Plasma.
Throwback to the Plasma Freeze days with Deoxys and Kyurem and Thundurus, all those basic attackers.
Genesect as well.
Genesect, yep.
1 Genesect, 1 Virizion, 3 Deoxys.
Yep. So, I'm going to try to get a check on what we are waiting for real fast, guys, but let me just check on that real quick. Hey, Adam.
But until then...
They not started? No.
Finally, there we go.
All right, so it looks
Thank
like we're going to get things going here. The round timer has started, but we need to get that fixed back to 50 minutes, and we're going to get things going here. Looks like John is going to start a Tapu Fini, which is not generally something you want to start. You know, it is a 2-prize Pokemon that Danny will be able to potentially knock out with Knuckle Impact later on in the game. But Danny on his side started a Tapu Lele, which he probably doesn't want to start either.
But we've seen it before. We'll see it again. The Tapu Lele, not too bad, but not optimal. We do see him, John, going for that Ultra Ball, discarding this Starmie, and it was a
Professor Sycamore, I believe. Yes. Just wants to probably get another, Froakie in play. Like I said, it's very easy for this Buzzwole deck to just take a knockout on a Froakie turn one. So, especially since John put the Brooklet Hill in play, Danny is guaranteed a Buzzwole next turn. He'll either have it in his hand or he can Brooklet Hill for it, worst case scenario. And if he gets, Strong Energy plus Regirock, that's an easy 1-prize knockout plus a Guzma or something like that. And John knows that's definitely something that could happen, so really valuing getting down that second Froakie. Finds another one even off of this Cynthia.
Does not look like we have Frog Hands this time
today. Looks like it's drawing just fine. He does get the energy attachment, which is really important. He needed to attach so he can retreat this Tapu Fini next turn. And over to Danny's turn. It looks like we're going to see he's got a Mew in his hand. He does have access to use that Brooklet Hill, so he can, he can get down a Buzzwole, he can get down a Rockruff, whatever he wants to get. He's got an Ultra Ball in his hand. I think he's just kind of debating, are these the cards he's definitely going to play? Yep, sure enough. Gonna Ultra Ball, gets rid of a basic Fighting Energy and a Mew from Fates Collide, and we'll see what this finds. Looks like he's going to eye up that Buzzwole GX. Rockruff also coming to the front. He may get one with Ultra Ball and one with Brooklet Hill. Just really kind of splitting up what he wants to get there. Also eyeing up Remoraid. He'll probably want to get that to have a little bit of draw power. But eventually, Abyssal Hand will get shut off by Shadow Stitching if that's the route John chooses to go.
Right.
So it actually looks like, I think we had a...
So while we weren't able to see the screen, Game 1 actually went to Danny at a donk. Frog Hands.
Frog Hands, unfortunately.
So, sorry about that, everyone. Our computer screen that we watched for the game ended up freezing.
So we didn't see the game, but apparently Game 1 has already happened, and that's why there's a few minutes left and a few more minutes gone. And actually, Danny going for a really strong play here, getting off the Floatstone and going for a corner, meaning this Tapu Fini will not be able to retreat. These these Greninja decks typically don't play Guzma. The only way John can get out of this is to eventually knock out this... he can use Aqua Ring, Tapu Fini's first attack, which moves it to the bench for 20 damage.
Right.
So that's effective. That works. It doesn't get him the turn 2 water duplicates he would have liked, but he also didn't play supporter that turn.
Thankfully, it was not the Espeon that would usually just get stuck there.
Yes, if John had started Espeon, that actually would have just lost him the game if he does play no Guzma like a lot of these Greninja decks do. Because, I mean, Espeon has no way to attack. It has no way to retreat once it's been cornered by Rockruff. But it looks like Danny is just going to get out a Brooklet Hill. And he does get that, or you get out Regirock with that Brooklet Hill, and with the Strong Energy on Buzzwole, he'll be able to take a knockout here on this Froakie in the active and spread 30 damage on one of these benched Pokemon.
Right. Into the retreat, and here we go. Like we said earlier, these frogs are very fragile until they get set up as Greninjas.
Yeah, absolutely. Froakie only has 60 HP, Frogadier only has 70, but Greninja buffs all the way up to 130, which is a lot on a 1-prize Pokemon.
Exactly.
So John has this Froakie in the active. He's going to be looking this turn to get off the water duplicates. For those who don't know, water duplicates, Frogadier's attack, it lets you search your deck for up to 3 Frogadier and put them on to the bench. So you get to effectively skip having to evolve them, skipping a stage of evolution, and letting you get Greninjas into play 1 turn faster. He's got 1 step there with the Frogadier. Just going to be looking for the energy now.
Which he has the Splash Energy.
Yeah, Splash Energy being very good here. If a Pokemon that has a Splash Energy attached to it is knocked out, you get to return that Pokemon to your hands. The Splash Energy does get discarded, but he can get the... Oh no, it looks like John either has Frogadiers in his hand or he prized 2.
Oh boy, and they're not in his hand. It looks like the frogs have gone to the prizes.
No, 2 Frogadiers prized. That is not good if you are a John Ing fan. Not what he wants to see right now. And this is one of the things that people hate about the Greninja deck, right? That sometimes you're going to prize multiple Frogadiers, and you're just going to, unfortunately, not be able to get set up because you don't have access to a huge portion of your evolution line.
I remember a while back when Grafton Roll was on this deck, he would actually keep a Politoed next to his prizes to keep the frogs out.
Yes.
So the deck is always known for prizing or just having bad hand issues.
Yes, it's a deck that has had those consistency issues we've talked about, but like I've said, its potential strength is so high, right?
It outweighs the cons most of the time in these matches, though you do not see a lot of people playing this deck nearly as often now.
Yeah. And even though this Frogadier will go down, John does have the splash energy attached to it, so he can get the Frogadier back and evolve the Froakie that's already on his bench. It'll be interesting to see where Danny places the 30 damage from this Jet Punch, though. He could try to soften up the Frogadier, but he could also try to, 2-hit KO if he puts it on the Froakie that he knows is going to turn into a Frogadier. He could try to get like a Guzma or something on the next turn and try to take that Frogadier out of play a little easier.
Right.
So it's a tough call, and that's really what Danny's debating here. If he does put it on the Froakie, it makes it easier to knock out a Greninja. But looking at his hand here, he's looking at his hand to decide what he wants to do. It looks like he is just going to decide to put it on the Frogadier.
Yes. John does find that extra Froakie down there, able to get a Super Rod out, getting probably, gonna guess at least, yep, there we go. The 2 Froakies back. Yeah,
and that Starmie, which is so important for this Greninja deck. Starmie's ability lets you Space Beacon once per turn, discard a card from your hand, and then put 2 energies, basic energies from your discard pile back into your hand.
Right.
In combination with Greninja Break's Giant Water Shuriken ability, it's so powerful.
It's fantastic.
Yep. So that he's definitely going to want to put that back, as we saw, and he's going to go for a Professor Sycamore here. Discard his hand and draw a fresh 7.
Looks like we have a Froakie in there, as well as a Splash Energy.
The Splash Energy is definitely great for him to find. So if this Greninja does go down, he can get it all back into his hand, which he's going to need to get this Frogadier back more than anything, honestly, at this point. Honestly, a lot of times I think whenever, Greninja has bad starts like this, sometimes I think you have to rely on, getting lucky with a bubble flip in order to get back into the game,
Definitely.
Sometimes you have to just buy some turns with a bubble flip to try to get yourself a little more set up. And, we'll just have to see what John is going to do here. He does have the energy. I think I don't know, it's tough. He can Shadow Stitching, but he's only doing 40 damage, which is not a lot to this 190 HP Buzzwole. And I think that might be a 60 on there, so he may have actually chosen the Moonlight Slash, saying, hey, the abilities don't really matter that much at this point, this specific turn.
Right.
So I'm not going to worry about that and just let you get the damage. Even if Danny did get another strong energy, that would boost Regirock's damage to 70, or excuse me, Buzzwole's damage to 70, plus 10 more from the Regirock, that's 80. That's not enough to knock out this Greninja.
Right.
So I think that's why he chose to just do the little more damage. He just needs to get some more damage in play this turn. Maybe try to get a knockout with Moonlight Slash and Water Shuriken next turn.
Yeah, plus with the other abilities on the field, he has a big hand. We're not going to see that Abyssal hand most likely.
Right.
And having a Lycanroc GX come out for Bloodthirsty Eyes really isn't important right now.
Yeah, there's not going to be too much on John's side that Danny's going to really prioritize knocking out. I guess if he had gotten another strong energy, he could have Lycanroc brought up the Frogadier and taken that out of play, since he would have been doing 80 damage with the Buzzwole's Jet Punch. But just opting to do this, I think, is totally fine. Actually does have a Guzma, though. I think he picked the Froakie.
He brought up the poor frail frog.
And is actually going to bring up brings up the Rockruff, and is going to just corner here, and with no Frogadiers, I'm not sure what John can do. Froakie can't attack with anything besides Bubble. He can Bubble, I guess what he has to do is he has to rely on bubbling for a turn, and, Danny not being able to use corner, but I guess if he didn't have Bubble, he doesn't have a damaging attack, the Rockruff could have potentially just quartered out the game.
Yeah.
And that's what happens whenever the Espeon GX comes into play, so John's not going to want to be doing that for sure. Yeah, just prizing 2 Frogadiers is so unfortunate. Looks like we see an Enhanced Hammer getting rid of that strong energy. He does have a couple of energies in his hand. I wonder if he'll attach. I mean, I would think he would want to go for the bubble here this turn. Gonna Brooklet Hill first, though. And maybe with this getting like a Starmie, or Staryu, I should say.
I would be going for the Staryu right here. It does look like he only has a few energy left in deck. I did see 2, maybe 3.
Mm-hmm.
So getting that Staryu out right now would be pretty good to start being able to put some more energy on these little frogs.
Absolutely. He chose to get nothing, though, so maybe he doesn't have access to the Staryu. Maybe it's in his prizes.
Ooh.
That would be unfortunate. I actually think I might see it in his hand. I can't quite tell, though. And he may not want to bench it yet because, you know, Buzzwole could just get a Guzma Jet Punch knockout on it with the Regirock's damage. So he may not want to bench it. Looks like we are just going to see the bubble, though. And that is a heads. That is really important for John to get out of this corner lock next turn so that he can start, you know, doing some damage with his Greninjas. And since, you know, surprisingly enough, the damage on the Rockruff, the 20 from the Aqua Ring from Tapu Fini earlier, is relevant because it actually allows John to get the knockout on this Rockruff next turn with Shadow Stitching.
Yep.
40 damage plus 20, 60 HP on the Rockruff. But, you know, if Danny can get off like a Guzma or something like that, maybe get off a really strong play. We'll see what he can do. Looks like...
Definitely. Looks like he's evolving to get rid of that Paralyze.
Yep. Gets rid of that status condition and going to choose to bring up the non-break evolved Greninja. Just the regular Greninja. And if he gets another basic energy, he can just, you know, Dangerous Rogue for the knockout. Interesting that he chose to bring up the Greninja as opposed to the Greninja Break. But it does make sense, I guess, because the Greninja Break already has 30 damage on it.
Right.
If he leaves this Greninja undamaged and it becomes a Greninja Break, it's a lot harder for him to hit 170 damage to take a knockout.
And at this point, one prize is just one prize.
Mm-hmm.
Even if it does mean there might be a giant water shuriken out there.
Absolutely.
The damage is very minimal.
Sure. So, and, you know, he also knows, hey, I'm going to leave John with just one Greninja Break in play.
Right.
And access to no Frogadiers unless he finds one of his recovery cards in Super Rod or Rescue Stretcher. We see an Enhanced Hammer, the second one coming out from John back-to-back.
There is the Staryu in hand, by the way.
Getting rid of that strong energy. He does have that Staryu, as you just mentioned. Looks like it will hit the field now. Giant Water Shuriken puts 60 damage on that Buzzwole.
Looks like he has another Froakie in hand that he's opting to shuffle back in with Cynthia.
I'm sorry, I can't tell. I don't think that... I think earlier when I said he may have Moonlight Slashed the Buzzwole, I think he did Shadow Stitching it, because I don't think that's 120 damage now on that Buzzwole. I can't quite tell. So there's a decent chunk of damage on that thing at this point, though.
Yeah.
There goes the Choice Band. That'll be great to get some extra damage. And this is also great for John. That Enhanced Hammer means that Danny's not going to be able to attack this turn unless he finds a Floatstone or a Guzma to move this Lycanroc, because its attack costs 3 energy. With only 1 attached, he's already used that Dangerous Rogue. He won't be able to do that. So over to Danny's turn. We'll see what he wants to do here. If he gets a Floatstone and an energy, he could knock out the active Greninja Break. And John has nothing in play if this Greninja Break goes down.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, he can set up like a Hydro Shot play with Tapu Fini, but that doesn't seem very good. He can try to buy turns with Bubble, but you're relying on a 50-50 at that point with a coin flip.
Right, and here comes the Guzma for that lone little Fragile Frog.
Yeah, that Fragile Frog gonna go down here, it looks like. He does need another energy, though, to take the knockout with Knuckle Impact or something like that. I'm assuming John went for Shadow Stitching. Looks like he's actually just going to Jet Punch here, which, you know, Danny is playing very smart, knowing that these Frogadiers are prized. He's, you know, just spreading this damage slowly, turn by turn. And we'll see what John grabs here with the Evosoda. Going to be the Starmie. Can get him the energies back that he needs. Honestly, this turn, I definitely think John is going to attach to the Tapu Fini and try to set up a Hydro Shot.
I think it's the only thing he really can do at this point.
He does have an in his hand, so that can be useful after Danny takes a knockout this turn or next turn. Or he may want to play it this turn, I'm not sure, we'll see. But that can definitely be useful to just, like, limit Danny's hand size a little bit. And plus Shadow Stitching is just extremely strong.
We do see the Burkett Hill and a Floatstone leave the field thanks to John's Field Blower. That Brooklyn Hill's not very useful right now, I'd say.
Yeah, not at this point. If John does draw the cards to get a knockout on this Buzzwole this turn, though, he wants to make sure Danny doesn't have the option to get another Pokemon in
Exactly.
play. So we'll see a Super Rod. That is crucial for John at this point. Needs to get those that Frogadier back in play. I say those, but there's really only the one. Also has a Water Energy he can put back, but going to put back the Tapu Lele instead. I probably wants to keep the Water Energies in the discard so he can find them in Space Beacon.
Right. Especially because he also has so many in hand right now.
Yep. Going to Eva Soda, can evolve the active Froakie into Frogadier. And he'll probably, I don't know, we saw a couple Water Energies in his hand. He can definitely retreat in Giant Water Shuriken and like Moonlight Slash to take a knockout, or Shadow Stitching even would do it with that Choice Band.
But does he really want to discard that Splash Energy?
You know, it is unfortunate. You hate to have to discard it, but I think at this point he does have to discard it. He still has not attached yet. Like I said, I think he could attach to Tapu Fini. I'm not sure that he will. He may not need to as much at this point, but I think, you know, with 90 damage now on that Lycanroc,
right.
He actually could Hydro Shot knock it out, so it's not the worst option, honestly. He has not attached yet. He does have the 2 in his hand, so he can Giant Water Shuriken plus attach if he wants to. He's just kind of figuring out where he wants to put the damage, though.
Yeah, definitely. We do see that damage come down to the Lycanroc GX. A cool 60 down there.
Oh, yeah. Very powerful ability. Gonna just Space Beacon away 1 Water Energy for 2 more in return. And does attach to the Tapu Fini.
I think he's getting ready for that late game Tapu Fini.
Yeah. Like I said, I think it's going to be a really good play for him. So it looks like that Greninja is going to be able to knock out the Buzzwole. So it looks like that one turn, John did in fact use Moonlight Slash instead of Shadow Stitching because the math works out there. So
he ends up promoting the Regirock.
That tells me that he either has a Floatstone in his hand or a Guzma, and he knows he's
there
going to be
is
able to
the
move it.
Floatstone, yes.
Yeah, normally don't like sending up Regirock because he is, you know, pretty big at 3 retreats, but with Floatstone, of course, reducing that down to 0, not too bad.
Right.
Brooklet Hill will find another Rockruff in play. You know, Danny has loved going for corner in this game. It'll be interesting to see if he chooses to do it again. He could, like, corner the Starmie to buy some turns if he needed to. I don't know that that's something he needs to do necessarily, but no, it looks like
he's going to go for it.
He is going to go for it. You know, John can attack with Starmie, so it doesn't, like, perfectly work. It's not like a game-winning corner, but it buys Danny turns, and it forces... Yep. It forces, you know, John to attach energies to the Starmie.
Mm-hmm.
Looks like he found one of those Frogadiers out of the prizes, so he'll be able to hopefully try to mount some sort of, you know, comeback attack here.
It's sad to see that we did have to attach that Splash Energy, though.
Yes, definitely likes to value putting those on to Greninja so you can get those evolution lines back. But I guess it's okay because if your Starmie goes down, it's a good Pokemon to get back as well.
This is true.
So Starmie's attack, Star Freeze, I believe, does 30 damage, and you flip a coin for paralysis. So it's kind of like a super bubble, you could think.
Right.
Does a little damage and has the chance to paralyze. So Danny here drawing his hand. And something he could do is he could actually attach an energy, even though he could attach an energy and still corner. And that way, even if John flips a heads on paralysis this coming turn, he can just evolve to Lycanroc and actually knock out this Starmie.
This is true.
So we'll see if that's what he goes for. John has played the 2 Enhanced Hammers. Danny was kind of wary about putting the Strong Energy into play. I guess he doesn't know if John plays potentially more Strong Energy, or excuse me, more Enhanced Hammers. John does get the water, though, and he'll be able to use that Star Freeze attack. Does use Space Beacon here, discards a Brooklet Hill, and gets a Water Energy out of the discard. There's the 30, and we'll see if this is a heads here or not.
It's
Looks
a
like
tail,
it is a
sadly.
tails. But a really smart play from Danny. He sets himself up for it. If John was to flip heads, you know, he would be able to evolve and Claw Slash for the knockout.
Yes.
And he may still go for that, honestly. He does have a Strong Energy in hand. There's the Lycanroc.
Yep.
He can use Bloodthirsty Eyes. There was no Shadow Stitching from John last turn. He could actually Claw Slash the Greninja break, but no, going to bring up the Tapu Fini, go for the prizes, and go down to just 1 prize card remaining here. Danny is in the driver's seat at this point.
I do think that was the correct play, bringing that up for those 2 prizes, especially when you're against a 1-prize deck mainly. These are such liabilities.
Yeah, absolutely. And he knows John can't deal with both of these Lycanrocs in play that he has. And all Danny has to do on the next turn is find 1 energy, and he can Claw Slash with the bench Lycanroc to knock out anything on John's side of the field at this point. John would need to find another Greninja to evolve to that Frogadier that has no damage on it and leave that in his active spot and just hope Danny doesn't have the strong energy.
Right.
So really smart, aggressive play here from Danny. Gonna take the knockout here on this Tapu Fini. You know, with the Choice Band plus Regirock plus strong energy, that is enough to hit that 170 that the Tapu Fini has. Max Elixir comes out. We'll see if he can find a energy.
It looks like a whiff.
Does whiff. At this point, though, I think he is okay. Honestly, even if he saw it, I'm not sure that he would have attached it. He kind of wants to have access to that energy to put it on the Lycanroc.
Right.
So, you know, maybe just thinning out the Elixir, saying, hey, I don't want to draw this if I get in. I just want to draw the energy. Gonna Abyssal Hand for a couple of cards here. Drawing, looks like we're just...
3.
Should be drawing 3. He's got 2 in his hand. I think we're just making sure everything is all good. Looks like it is.
Looks like
he does find a Choice Band going onto the benched Buzzwole. Once again, just something he does not want to draw. Counting how many cards he has in his deck there, just checking to make sure, like, what resources do I have access to still. And there goes the Claw Slash, taking the knockout there on Tapu Fini.
Bringing Daniel down to just 1 prize, almost to take the series.
Yeah, this is not looking good for John Ing. It almost seems like, I mean, at this point, he may have to go for a bubble. Honestly, he could even go for a Star Freeze with Starmie and actually do some damage. That may be slightly better than bubble, honestly, at this point.
Might be. But it might just be too little too late.
It honestly may be. We'll just have to see what his win condition is. Like I've said, John is a very good player. He's good at recognizing, you know, what his win conditions are, what he, you know, what his outs are to specific situations. Even if it seems bleak, you know, there is technically still an out, even if it's however unlikely it may be.
Right.
He does have an Ultra Ball. It looks like he may try to get another Greninja in play.
And further thinning that deck to make sure he can get those resources when needed.
Actually going to evolve to the damaged Greninja. And he's got a supporter in his hand. It looks like it's an in. Which in plus Shadow Stitching would be a great combo here for him to pull off. I think he was just debating, do I want to attach this energy or not before the in? Because he may want to, you know, Giant Water Shuriken that.
Right. So we're ending Daniel down to 1.
So it's just going to, I think honestly at this point, it might come down to, does Danny draw the energy that he needs to win the game?
I mean, he has Abyssal Hand, so he can go up to 5.
Right.
Assuming we don't see a Shadow Stitch.
Yeah, of course, of course. I think at this point, John knowing that he's put Danny at just 1 card, he's probably going to go for that Shadow Stitching.
Right.
He does draw another Greninja, so he can do that. He's going to Space Beacon the Ultra Ball away to get 2 waters.
Currently thinking, I'm guessing, on where to place damage.
Yeah. He's just, you know, trying to identify what he needs to do to win the game.
Right.
You know, what is his out?
It's all a numbers game at this point.
Absolutely. Giant Water Shuriken is going to come out here. Just where is it going to go? There's a lot of damage on that Lycanroc. I'm sure it's not enough to get knocked out, because if it was, I think John would have done it by now.
Right.
But he may also want to put some more damage on this active Lycanroc. The Lycanroc does have 30 on it from the Star Freeze, actually, so it does only have 170 HP remaining, so a a Giant Water Shuriken plus a Choice Banded Moonlight Slash would be enough to knock it out. But no, he actually does get the knockout with that Giant Water Shuriken. And it's just not going to be enough to win the game, unfortunately, for John. And that is going to be a 2-0 in favor of Danny Altavila, moving to 3-0 here at the Toronto Regional Championships.
So sad to see that it happened that way with a donk and that, but it's the way the game goes.
You know, and that is, you know, how Greninja can be sometimes. Like we said, it's extremely powerful. And even there in that game, you know, it wasn't necessarily over. If Danny hadn't gotten the Guzma on that Tapu Fini, or if John hadn't started Tapu Fini, that game, even though he prized 2 Frogadiers, would have been pretty close, honestly.
You could definitely see the comeback coming.